Welcome to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakup Podcast. If someone in your life has BPD, you know how difficult it can be, and you need to learn how to heal from those toxic relationships. And that's where this show comes in. Expert education, expert knowledge, expert insight, and delivered with compassion and empathy. With your host, counselor and trauma recovery coach, AJ Mahari. To purchase and book sessions with AJ, go to ajmahari.ca. Now your host, AJ Mahari.
10 ways to help a borderline. So is it a myth or is it a fact? Each one of these 10 ways that it's said out there that you should be able to help that person, whether it's a significant other, still a partner, on, off. Maybe you're trying to help an ex. Maybe it's a parent. Maybe it's a adult child. Maybe it's a sibling or a family member in general. So what are these 10 ways that you're supposed to be able to manage helping people, especially with untreated borderline personality disorder? Well, number one is be patient. If your loved one with borderline personality disorder is struggling to deal with their emotions, it's important that you try not to get involved in any argument in the heat of the moment. Okay, well, how does that work if they start raging? It'd be a good idea if you don't engage it, but this is really stressful for people. So how patient can you really be, and how much can you disengage getting involved in an argument in the heat of the moment? Very difficult. Do you think that's a fact? Do you think that would really help? Or do you think that's more of a myth? And remember, I'm talking about when the person that you suspect or the person you know has BPD is not getting any treatment or any help or significant treatment or help. It's recommended out there that how you can help your person with BPD is this could be better to wait until you both feel calmer to talk things through. Well, what could possibly be myth about that in actuality of trying to do it? Well, the fact is, even if you can wait till you're calmer, or you need to calm down after they maybe got you sort of all riled up in many different ways, and if they've been raging and whatnot, well, how long is it going to take them to calm down? Okay, so that sounds great, doesn't it? Does it usually work, though, with an untreated borderline? No, because when you're calm and they're calm and it's a different day, they won't know what you're talking about anymore. They won't acknowledge it. I don't think they actually forget it, most people with BPD. But the point is, then it enters the communication deficits that are involved that people with BPD have. And so when you want to talk things through, they're usually not too interested. And they don't usually hear you very well. And they have just cognitive distortions that make their reality all or nothing, black and white. And so a lot of those kind of conversations you might attempt to have aren't going to be really helpful. And they'll just kind of leave you needing to feel like you need to calm down again. They're so frustrating. And the second way that maybe you could help the borderline, again, untreated, is this fact or is this a myth, do you think? Don't judge. Meanwhile, they're judging you. They're making accusations against you. And, it can be so difficult if you don't understand why someone is feeling or behaving in a certain way, someone with BPD. But do you really have to understand all that to know in any given moment that you're really hurting and that they're impacting you negatively, or they might even be like treating you so poorly and you're losing yourself to trying to focus on them? You're not supposed to judge them, but isn't it rather a dangerous thought to think that you're going to help the borderline by not judging them? Because so many people with the codependency are maybe not only not judging, maybe like coming to a conclusion about what you're observing, what you're living, what's happening to you in these interactions with somebody with BPD. And when their reactions, people with BPD are often dramatic and chaotic and all over the map emotionally, and they'll be judging you up the yin-yang. But you're supposed to try to remember that you're not in their head and you don't know what's going on inside of them. And there may be things going on for them that you just can't understand. Does that make it okay for you to just kind of be, the target of their anger, their rage, or their silent treatment? Because you're just going to not judge, and then you try to listen and acknowledge your feelings rather than judging their reactions. How does that lead to any understanding or anything that would mean any kind of relief or change from the person with BPD? So whether one is judging the person with BPD or not, I think this is again another myth as to how you can really help a person with BPD, because it's going to cost you way too much and you're going to be abandoning yourself. And the third way that maybe you could help a person with BPD, what do you think? Is this a fact or a myth? Is just be calm and consistent, because they're often not calm and they don't know how to be consistent, because people with BPD have that lack of self, unstable sense of identity, the fear of abandonment, the fear of engulfment, the approach avoidance conflict in BPD, the push-pull, and they don't have any consistency. They are not congruent in their emotions and their thoughts, or, always with what's happening in the here and now between you and them or in your environment. And so, but you're just supposed to be calm and consistent when really they can't be either. And so it's kind of a big ask, I think. And another myth that if you're just calm and consistent, that's going to mean really anything that helps you or the person with BPD who's untreated, chaotic, dramatic, feeling a lot, and taking no personal responsibility. And you're going to be, again, abandoning yourself and losing yourself. Could you help a person with BPD feel more secure and supported that you're helping in moments of conflict? Well, when that conflict is being directed at you, if you feel yourself becoming angry or upset, just try to take some time alone and go for a walk. Well, these sound lovely, these suggestions, don't they? But like myth or fact, I think, again, myth, because that person with BPD probably won't want you to take a walk, or they'll just end up triggered again, not by you, but internally they will have a strong response, because if you want to take a walk, they're going to feel abandoned. And the fourth one here is remind them of their positive traits. Oh, yeah. No, I think another myth with untreated borderlines, if you do this in trying to, quote, help, unquote, them, remind them of their positive traits. Yeah, when someone you care about is finding it hard to believe anything good about him or herself, can be reassuring to hear all the positive things that you see in them. Well, not only maybe is it getting much more difficult to see, feel, believe, or be, experiencing positive things from a person with BPD untreated in a relationship, because it's a really rocky road. It's a real roller coaster. The other thing about that is when you reassure them and you maybe tell them all the positive things about them, well, you could try it. But the bottom line is people with untreated borderline personality disorder don't feel very good about themselves, don't know themselves, but really don't have any self to be able to, even if they had a self, they wouldn't like themselves. They often have a lot of shame. And so with all of that, they can't even really take in positive messages a lot of the time. So if you're reminding them of their positive traits, because you want another way you can help them, what do you think? Fact or fiction? I say fiction, because they're going to argue with you even when you're trying to be positive with them. And sometimes for some people with untreated BPD, they'll get even more defensive, argumentative, chaotic, and dramatic if you're actually trying to be positive and loving. So I think we're at number 5 now. Oh, just, set clear boundaries, right? Because that's all your job. And you're going to have nothing being returned to you in these 10 ways to help an untreated borderline. Well, I'm saying why it's myth is because if it's an untreated person with BPD. Set clear boundaries. Yeah, number 5. Practicing good boundaries and expectations can make a big difference. I wonder, really? What do you think? I think myth. Because people with codependency don't have, I'm not going to say good or bad, but healthy boundaries. And people with BPD can't stand other people having boundaries because it interrupts the flow of their mirroring you in an unconscious way to establish their own identity kind of from you and through you, which is unconscious on their part. So even if you're having healthy boundaries, it's not really going to make that much of a difference for the person with BPD or for you in the relational dynamic. And the other thing is, expectations? You're going to find if you're with an untreated person with BPD in any relationship type that no matter what your expectations are, they're going to blow you away with whatever they do that you can't foresee, or if you're thinking about this person who's an ex now that you could have not ever foreseen. So if the person with BPD is feeling insecure, they're always feeling insecure about being rejected or abandoned. Well, that's often perceived and not actual, and it's not your responsibility, and it's coming back from their past. So how are you supposed to just set clear boundaries when they can't accept boundaries and they don't generally have any boundaries? So can it really help to clarify what you expect from each other and to communicate about this calmly if things become unclear? Well, the things becoming unclear or never being clear to the person with BPD, that's going to be a constant state of the way it is for them, and with their abandonment fears and their engulfment fears, etc. So I think just setting clear boundaries and having reasonable expectations with an untreated person with BPD in any relationship type, I think, again, it's a myth that that's really going to help, because, again, it's predicated on this idea that you're going to they're going to respond in a healthy way to your boundaries or your expectations, which isn't going to happen. They're going to fight you on that. And the other thing about just setting clear boundaries and having reasonable expectations is that the roller coaster of what the person with untreated BPD is going to be like, it just precludes you being able to stay in that place, because it'll be a super disconnection. And they'll be reactive to that, highly reactive to that. And then the idea that you can communicate about whatever this is calmly later, again, then the deficits that people with BPD have in communication are going to arise, and you'll end up in a jade conversation, and it goes nowhere. So the sixth way that you're supposed to be able to help a borderline is to plan ahead. I don't think this will have any positive effects on changing anything that you're experiencing with a volatile, up and down, all over the map, roller coaster, chaotic, dramatic person with untreated BPD. But what if plan ahead was a way that you could help the person with BPD? When you're supporting someone with BPD, when they're feeling okay, ask them how you can help them when things are difficult. And they probably won't have any suggestions for you, or what they suggest to you, you might then try, and then you'll find out, but they're still fighting you. I wonder why. Because they can't take in these things that you're saying. They're equally as triggering to them, and it's not because you are saying them. The triggers are inside the person with BPD. I think planning ahead is also a myth, because how are you supposed to plan for things that you never know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen? Like, this stuff comes out of seemingly nowhere. When you're with a person with BPD, it's like all of a sudden things are fine, and then boom, all of a sudden they're not. And it's like, what happened? Nothing happened. So where are they now? So again, I think planning ahead is a myth. I don't think that you can help somebody with BPD by planning ahead who's untreated or not significantly treated. And the seventh one is, oh yeah, do this. No, don't do this. But this is what people recommend out there. Learn their triggers. Well, maybe you can learn their triggers somewhat, because you know certain patterns that they have if you're in whatever relationship type, or if it's a partner or someone you're dating, or if it was your ex. Just think about all this and realize that you probably gave it your all. And even if it's really recent, ghosting or discard or breakup, it can hurt really badly. But how can you really learn their triggers? I mean, I think you can know. Some people don't know anything about what's going on in these relationships, rupture and get ghosted and or discarded very quickly. And you might not have known what was going on, or that they had BPD. But if you learn their triggers, what does that actually mean? Because often they don't even know what their triggers are. So if you're with an untreated borderline, or you're on and off with one, learning their triggers is really, again, I think, is it a way that you can help them? No, because they're not in treatment. They're not gaining any more insight. They're not changing. So you would just be rescuing and trying to fix and make everything okay some more, as people with codependency do. Learning their triggers, they have to go to therapy and learn their triggers themselves first. They have to learn to take responsibility for their own triggers. They have to learn how to I guess in a way, deprogram or unlearn those triggers or how to manage them. Situations or conversations might trigger negative thoughts and emotions. Well, but the thing that's key to know here is you're not triggering the person with BPD because you said this, because you didn't say that, because you chose to go do whatever, or because you didn't go and do whatever, or because you didn't sit there longer, or you didn't get home from work on time, etc. Learning their triggers is only going to embolden your codependency and get you into this betrayal bonded relationship in a deeper, more hurtful way to yourself. So I think that learning their triggers as a way to help a person untreated with BPD, no, again, I think it's a fail. Again, I think it's codependence will try, it's overgiving, it's not going to be reciprocated. The person with BPD untreated is not taking personal responsibility. You're going to be doing all the heavy lifting, all the hard work, and it's going to go nowhere. You can have all those jade conversations anyway. The communication deficits in BPD, you learning your triggers is not going to help overcome that either. And you just can't make the environment be what they need it to be all the time so that they can feel a little bit more in control even though they don't know who they are. Number 8, provide distractions for the person with BPD who's like triggered and all chaotic and dramatic, and maybe they're giving you the silent treatment. I don't know. Where'd they go? How are you going to provide distractions? They're not going to be interested or paying attention in the slightest. They will be aloof and they are disconnected because they don't even really ever connect to you. And if they do, maybe it's momentarily kind of connections, for a little while. But it's not a congruent or lasting connection because that's what breaks so often. It ruptures in between the non-borderline and the borderline, or the person with codependency and the borderline. So how are you going to provide, and the raging person with BPD, what are you going to do? Try to distract them while they're raging? This is not a good idea. So again, this is another way that you're supposed to be able to help somebody with BPD. Recommend it out there. If they're not in treatment, there's no way you should be doing this, because providing a distraction for them, I would say also, is a myth under the circumstances that they are not being treated or have not had significant treatment. You trying to provide distraction is just going to be you rewarding their poor behavior. So you're going to try to give. And what are they doing? What are they doing to help the situation? Probably nothing. So apparently it can be really useful to distract somebody with BPD from their difficult feelings. I don't think it's practical, because unless and until they learn how to distract themselves and they're in therapy and getting significant help, what good is it going to be if you try to distract them? Because they're not going to get on the bus, right? They're not going to get on the ride of your distraction. They're still going to be in whatever mood state, whatever, like if they're angry or aloof. These are actual suggestions out there, and they're not going to help anybody with BPD who's untreated. So you can try suggesting activities or tasks to distract them. But I think this is a myth that this is going to help the person with BPD. Again, I stress, if they're untreated, haven't had any significant treatment, you're just going to be banging your head against the wall, actually. So I say that one also is a myth. Now to number 9, you can just learn more about BPD, which people do, which you might be listening to this right now because you want to learn more about BPD or something to that effect, right? Well, cool. But for so many people, these relationships are over. They're ruptured. They're broken. They don't work in the first place. But they are ruptured and broken by the time you figure out this person has BPD. Because even if they've told you, like lots of clients I've worked with have said, well, when I first met her, she told me she had BPD. People go, but I didn't know what that was. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I still love this person. I want to get to know them better. So learning more about BPD, because BPD is a complicated diagnosis, complicated reality, and BPD untreated makes relationships impossible. Just simply straight up impossible. They can't love you. They can't attach to you. They can't reciprocate. They don't do anything mutual. They are not, their behavior, their feelings, their love. They can't stay connected to you. They might be feeling closer and like you might be having a good time sometimes, right? The good's really good. The bad's really horrible. But learning more about it, You might sometimes have to deal with the person with BPD's misconceptions on top of trying to manage their mental health issues. But see, that's codependency right there. You shouldn't be trying to manage their mental health issues or their mental health or their behavior or their triggers. So educating yourself can also help you to challenge stigma. Well, are you really worried about stigma in the middle of a person with BPD raging at you or giving you the silent treatment, whatever they might do when they're triggered to emotional dysregulation, and the fact that they don't really see you for who you are and your object other, parent representative, either good or all bad, depending if it's idealization or devaluation. But after that initial devaluation split that can lead to ghosting or relationship breakup, it leads to rupture. And remember, people with BPD, especially untreated, don't know how to repair any rupture. No matter how many hours you try to talk about it, no matter how much you learn about it. So, in this list of 10 ways to help people with BPD, if your person with BPD is not in treatment or had significant treatment, none of this works. What do you think? I say that learn more about BPD. Yes, many people are going to do that after they've been ghosted or discarded. The relationship is so rocky and recycling, which, by the way, isn't going to make it work, isn't going to make it better. You're just going to keep experiencing the same, maybe sometimes all good, but the really costly all bad. So learning more about BPD is often what people do after the relationships are over and when it's really hard to accept that. And then some people get too stuck on learning more about BPD. But do you think that this is going to help you save the relationship or be able to help the person with BPD? Because I think this one also fails in reality, that it is not fact, but it is also myth. And now to number 10. Just help the person with BPD seek treatment and support. Well, many of you probably already tried this. You did this. You tried. Your relationship is over. You've been ghosted and or discarded. You're really in a bad place. By the way, I'm out here to work with anybody that wants to try to heal and understand this better. I can help you understand BPD better as well. Helping them to seek treatment and support, everybody tries that. Everybody tries that. And again, could it help someone with BPD to take more responsibility and get into therapy and work on themselves? Well, maybe, but not often. So some people, yeah, but is it going to save your relationship? No. And because they need so much time. And then you have to do your healing work too, or what's going to change in the relationship. So helping them to seek treatment and support is also often more overgiving and too much focus on them for people with codependency. And you're not thinking enough about what you're going through and how you need to seek your own treatment and support. Can you be helped to help the person with BPD? I've helped some clients maybe in some ways to do that, but it doesn't last because the person with BPD can't have any congruence or consistency or age appropriateness with any real connection to you, any real love, any real attachment. So again, helping them to seek treatment and support is not really going to change what you're going through with an untreated borderline. So I think that is more, again, a myth than it is a fact. What do you think? What's been your experience? Just as an aside, and it's not really part of the 10 ways supposedly to help a borderline, are these 10 ways fact? And how are you going to take care of yourself if you're working through, or if you're doing all these things or a few of these things to try to help the person with untreated BPD or suspected BPD, but maybe not diagnosed? Take care of yourself is on this list as well. But it shouldn't be after the 10 ways you can help the person with BPD and lose yourself more and stay in a devolving relationship that has no possibility to work out if they remain untreated, and you have no power to change if they remain untreated or not. So with that, take care of yourself should be like the number one thing on this list. And it's not a way that you can really help the person with BPD, but then you really can't help them. You can't change them, can't fix them, can't rescue them, and you can't bolster and support them because you'll be losing yourself all the while, and they do not return all that you give to them. So looking after a person with BPD, well, if it's not your child or even an adult child, why would you want to be looking after someone who can't look after themselves and can't reciprocate to you what you're giving to them? Or they're just too needy. It's important to remember that your mental health is important too. Well, it's not just important too. It should be your number one concern, because you can't put somebody else ahead of yourself to that degree, when especially when it's not working, it's not helping. You're just going into evolving circles. But maybe you really don't want to admit that yet, because for people with codependency, in these relationships with untreated people with BPD, in all relationship types, so it was significant other, romantic relationships, or sibling, or parent, or child, or adult child, or a teen, just can't change these people by themselves. And so if you're putting take care of yourself at the bottom of the list, which most people are, it's more than just important to remember that your mental health is important too. Your mental health is your responsibility. But the person with BPD untreated, or maybe not even diagnosed, but highly suspected of having BPD, their mental health isn't really there at the moment. And you can't take responsibility for whether they're really mentally unhealthy or whatever's going on with their mental health, because that will cost you your mental health. So it's really important to be taking care of yourself. And for people in these relationships, and if you're trying to help the borderline, fix the borderline, rescue the borderline, change the borderline so that your relationship can work, because you're desperately wanting the better part of them and who you thought they were when you met them, and it's not who they are. Do you know how much you are contributing to hurting yourself, and that it's all going to be in vain, because you're going to need more help to heal, you're going to have a lot more trauma, and you're not going to help them at all. And it's tragic and sad that when people with BPD don't take the personal responsibility to get help for themselves, you can't make them do it. So I think the 10 ways to help a borderline that I've just talked about here is way more myth than fact when they are not learning how to do these things for themselves as well. Because if you're trying to help somebody who's not trying to help themselves with BPD, you're just losing yourself, and it's going to be stressing you out. And the take care of yourself aspect of this 10 ways to help a person with BPD, which is mostly myth if they are untreated or not yet diagnosed and highly suspected of having BPD, then taking care of yourself means going no contact, getting out of the relationship, taking a break from like a family member, whatever, getting into your own healing recovery journey. And you need to focus on that, because people with codependency have learned in childhood to overextend, to try to make the other person feel better so you can feel okay, try to change the way that somebody else is. And it doesn't work in childhood, and we don't get to do that with our parents or a family member, and it doesn't work in adult relationships. And when you're with somebody with BPD untreated or suspected borderline personality disorder, you're not with a full-fledged adult, right? Emotionally, these people are still stuck back in early childhood. Emotionally, they are not adults. And so you will be thrust into the parent role. And I believe that these 10 ways that I've read out there in many different words used to help somebody with BPD are just actually unintentionally encouraging people to be more and more codependent and really abandon yourself in the fantasy or illusion that all that you could give, be patient, don't judge, be calm and consistent, remind them of their positive traits, set clear boundaries, plan ahead, learn their triggers, provide distractions, learn more about BPD, help them seek treatment and support. Well, you're doing all that. What are they doing? Nothing. Are they cooperating? No. Are they taking personal responsibility? No. Are they personally accountable to you for how much you get hurt? No. And how can you take care of yourself when you're doing these 10 things that are supposedly going to help a borderline? What do you think? I think these 10 things might be applicable to somebody who's with somebody with BPD who's had many years of treatment and is really on their way to recovery. But if you're with an undiagnosed or untreated person with BPD or suspected BPD, These 10 ways to help a person with BPD, I would assert to you each and every one of them is a myth, not a fact. And are you doing any of these? Have you done these and more? Because you can't help anybody that isn't helping themselves, that isn't taking personal responsibility for themselves. Don't let your codependency continue to ruin your life because you feel like there's going to be nobody else for you, because you feel like you need it. The person that you have to be with is this person who's actually not connected to you, can't love you, you won't be able to help them. And even if you're pointing out their good qualities, etc., like I said, they're just going to be fighting you on everything because they don't know who they are and they are lost. And you can't fix, rescue, change a borderline to make a relationship with them work. So I'm out here to work with you if you want to work on the healing, the recovery, the aftermath, the horrific feelings, the lostness of, the super pain and everything that goes with it of being ghosted by a borderline or discarded by a borderline, in the on-off relationship recycling patterns, which these relationships are not going to work out, ladies and gentlemen. You need to save yourself.
You've been listening to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakup Podcast with your host, counselor and trauma recovery coach, AJ Mahari. For more or get sessions with AJ, go to ajmahari.ca. See you next time.